All right, Jessica.
All right, so I guess we'll call this meeting to order. Why don't we all stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Why don't we just stay standing? We'll just have a moment of silence for two community members we lost. One was Tommy Arsenault, who was a member of the fire department, and the other is Jim Fitzgerald, who is a former town manager. Thank you, everyone. We also have a congratulations in order for Brendan Deso, who had his baby yesterday. Corey, did you guys have a baby yet? Or no? You're still waiting? Okay.
Not that I know
of. You would be in trouble if you were here.
Yeah. So let's see, could someone make a motion to add the town hall update to the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we will add that to the agenda. Will that go under right after minutes? Or should we do it right away?
I'm thinking we could do it right away since we
Okay.
already amended the agenda.
All right, so we'll hear from Hunter.
All right, hello everyone. Met you all before, but I'm Hunter Gomez with Peterson Consulting, project manager for the Town Hall project, and here to provide an update. As you've probably driven by, we're underway. Things are going well as of now, and looking to get some concrete on the ground potentially as early as next week, which would be awesome. And also got the panelized walls coming shortly thereafter. I believe you all have the handout, which I'm looking at, which is kind of the summary that we worked on as an update for everyone. And just to run through that, the first item to mention.
It is.
Yep. So the first item in the pink line, just wanted to call to attention the total budget number we're carrying, $4,586,959.10, has $86,959.10 of carryover design fees from phase 2 of the planning process. So just wanted to highlight that. That's between Freeman French Freeman, Sanborn Head, and the small amount from Peterson Consulting as well. Moving down that, if you set up to show basically the total carrying cost of the project thus far in the gray down below. The expense to date, we're showing $263,519.06, which currently puts us $2,379.51 under budget, which we will anticipate there'll be some additional design fees from Ruggiano Engineering, which will probably chew up that small budget deficit and balance things right out. And that's kind of that's the macro update. We have received DEW's first pay application for last month, which was for a total of $139,501.99, which leaves them with 3.8, just over 3.8 left on their contract, which is itemized on the right-hand side, right over the totals, and that's by division. And then in the owner cost, the FF&E, which is the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment summary, we are kind of, as we go through, building that out with our allotted placeholders We do have the contract secured for the builder's risk insurance, of course. Just put the security and access control out as an owner furnished item to bid. The furniture will be coming shortly thereafter, probably a little bit more towards the end of the year, so we don't have to have someone hold a bunch of stuff for us with the lead times we're looking at right now. And then obviously the permit has been paid for, line down at the bottom, and then the owner contingency, which we'll be tracking every month, is the very last line. And that log is on the bottom as well. So that's kind of the macro update, and obviously open to questions if anyone has them, or discussions of any kind.
So this is more or less what Hunter and I worked up to provide you every month. So
Yeah.
if there's something else you'd like to see, this would be a great time to point it out, or you can always ask questions, but this is tried to keep us out of the weeds and bigger picture, where are we, and what do we have coming up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but easy enough to, if something doesn't read correctly now, or it'd be easier for your visually, now would be the time to change it, because we wanted to keep it the same moving forward. So
I don't know if there's any triggers that we would want to put in here, but I'm just wondering if there's anything that we're going through the expenses faster than we anticipated, if there's any sort of red flag that we could, it may not make sense for every line, but if there's anything where we're definitely wanting to watch a little closer, I don't know if you have any suggestions of any lines that we should be particularly paying attention to as far as getting close, if we go too far too fast.
Yep. Well, in terms of the biggest ticket item is obviously the DEW contract, and that's locked in unless we authorize any changes. So that one's kind of a little bit on autopilot, kind of our process. I'm glad you brought that up, because the process was the other item I wanted to talk through. So basically, that being the largest item, that pay app monthly goes to both our firm and Freeman French Freeman. We run it through our independent spreadsheet just to make sure all the arithmetic checks out. Then in congruence with Jesse Robbins, the architect of record, make sure that the percentages of what they're billing for match the actual pay app, and then both myself and Jesse sign it to send it to the town to get paid. So that's kind of the checks and balances on that. We would know in advance if something before it gets paid, if there's anything kind of haywire with that. That's why that process is in play. And then in regards to the other invoices for whatever it may be, design fees, or as we're getting the security access control stuff worked out, all those invoices Jen sent in directly to me, and we're tracking them in here. I can just show you real quick, on a monthly basis, on a line by line. So that would be where that would turn up, because that's going to show total scheduled value versus total to date, and then the balance of contract. So that's kind of built into there. The one caveat I would say is that obviously some of these aren't contracted yet in terms of the furniture costs and things like that. So that's where we have a little bit of wiggle room to either reuse more items or just cut back on what we're going to purchase. So I don't think it would happen on this sheet necessarily, but it'll come up in. It can certainly make it red if our expenses to date is over the allotted amount. That would be where that would occur, kind of on a monthly basis, but we don't have any of that going on right now. So
That's good.
if that makes sense, if that
and
answers
Hunter,
your question.
Right, and Hunter's on site every day. We're in contact every day.
Yeah.
And once he sends the approved warrant to me, it's been approved by the two of them, then I review it and send it to Lisa. So it goes through the internal things that we haven't set up already.
Okay.
Have you seen, just thinking changes in cost of materials? Has that helped at all from where we were? We were talking about this a couple of months ago.
It did. The wood came down. I mean, there's still a lot of variability in just procurement of items, but theoretically, and we're in the process of getting the project bought out, which is deposits are put down, stuff's on its way. So we haven't had any issues arise as of yet, which is good. overall, the value is definitely here because I think we had some of the bigger trades that had projects canceled, and so we did get some really favorable numbers on certain lines, particularly electrical and the HVAC plumbing line. So nothing startling as of yet though, but the world is a funny place right now. So we'll let you know if it comes up.
And so the notes section in the FF&E section, that'll just get updated as we get more information, certainly where the placeholders are. I'm just wondering with the builder's risk insurance, so the note there that's talking about the policy, is the expense that's paid, was that the cost of the policy, or was that a payout, or what was?
Yeah, that one's getting paid quarterly, so
Okay.
that's a quarter of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that one we may not, if everything stays on schedule, we actually may not use that whole line out because
Okay.
it's a year-long policy, and we should be around 8 months, so
Okay,
we should get ideally a prorate back on that.
great, thanks.
Anybody have any other questions or comments?
This is helpful to see.
Yeah,
That's good.
definitely.
Yeah.
Happy to provide.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
I guess, sorry, I just have one other question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for this document or if it's, but I'm thinking about the conversation we had last week where we might be wanting to track things that we might be doing to help save costs, but they're work that's being done by our team here.
Mhm.
Is there a place, I don't know if it would be captured here or is that captured in another place if we wanted to capture that long term?
So we're not, the simple answer, it is captured here, like if you're talking about the dirt, because when we bid that project, we told them early on that we wanted to take that product, and so that contractor priced it as such. So the price reflects the net effect of, we wanted to keep the topsoil, so we wouldn't have to buy it back ourselves or pay that other company to truck it over there.
Yeah, that particular item, generally a site contract would be structured so that they own the refuse, and if they can sell it, so be it. But they're also accepting the risk of it being absolutely garbage, and they have to just dispose of it. And because we had dug the test pits in advance, knowing that you already owned a foot to 14, 15 inches of topsoil, the building committee had structured it in advance so that was just part of their contract to retain it, and just to capture the long-term savings of not having to buy something you already owned, basically. But that would be captured in this if things go to the contingency line, then we would be logging it in that.
Okay.
If there's other items that come up, but really there isn't anything that the town is responsible for. We'd kicked around some ideas before about them building the mound, or drilling the well or things like that, and we didn't end up having to pursue any of that. So it's all kind of pretty much all under DEW's umbrella, with the exception of the paving, which you guys get a much better deal at the municipal rate than they do. So that was kind of, if you recall that conversation.
Yes.
So in the last general fund warrant, there was a invoice in there for Briette's tree service for $2,500.
For what service?
Briette's tree service. That was to take a tree down at the new DPW site, or not the DPW, the new town hall, I believe. So it's stuff like that just it's paid with the general fund, I think is what Aaron's we're trying to get at, is some of the stuff that's paid for by the general fund is being used down at that site.
I mean, in general, we're not doing that. If that got done, I mean, we did do that with some things, like Hunter referenced for paving. We did it for the garage in an effort to save money. So we paved our own things. We did some of our own work there. I mean, if you want to track things at that granular level, that could be done. What we're probably going to need to hire somebody, because I think if we're going to track that level of service, we call it, what's the name that they call it in grants, so that you do in-kind work, then we would also need to credit that account for every time we got the free topsoil from the pile and used it for a DPW general fund project, right? So you gotta have the pluses and the minuses, and I don't think in the big picture of things, topsoil itself, the $65 a yard, I mean, I don't know, it's not a ton of money on the big picture. It's a $5 million project. But going forward, if you want that granular level of review, we could do it. I just think we're gonna have to hire maybe two hunters, that's all, because that's a lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
guess
work.
to speak to the tree, that's kind of a one-off. If that was what it was, that's pretty minor. We can capture that in this if need be. To speak to maybe the one other item you're thinking of is getting it prepared for their entrance.
Mhm.
That we did get a credit back from the contractor on that for the culverts over there. So, you know, there's been some preparatory work that before we had a contract executed, just in the interest of time, was done to kind of keep things moving along. So we can respond accordingly. It's not a big deal one way or another.
I don't know. I just feel it's general fund money. If you use LOT money to reimburse that with, then it's more money in the department or whatever you charged it to. It's more money in that fund. That's all.
I mean, in the end, it's all taxpayers' money, and we're taking
Well,
it for
no,
one.
you're taking property taxes and then you're taking LOT taxes. It's two separate ones.
So are we going to then track, though, every time we get a whole project's worth of topsoil from the pile that we already own, we could credit it back, and I guarantee that we're gonna save more money from the taxpayers on that huge pile of topsoil than it cost us to truck it there. I mean, the net is a positive to the general fund, is what I'm saying. I haven't defined that yet, because we don't know how many loads went into that pile, but if you'd like to do that, we can. We didn't hire enough people to do that right now, so we can do that for that one tree, but I just don't know we wanna.
Yeah, I don't want to conflate the two, I guess, would be my
Yeah.
comment, because the tree being the one-off,
Yeah.
that invoice I hadn't seen, we can build that in here. That's very, very inconsequential and easy to do. The topsoil, if two kind of being separate deals, the topsoil is kind of a it just isn't. There was no money saved, and there was really no money cost. So you're just taking something you already owned, because you already own the land. So I guess I'm confused by
I know,
that
but if
one.
the project never moved forward, we wouldn't be dealing with the topsoil. So I'm saying you're spending general fund money moving topsoil, is what I'm saying. What if you don't use it for a long period of time?
What?
You know what I mean?
To answer that
I
hypothetical,
guess
it
it's
doesn't go
good.
bad.
I know it doesn't go bad, but so what I'm saying is, if the project never happened, then I guess you never would have had to move the topsoil. You could have just left it there.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that trucking in between.
If the project never happened, you wouldn't have the trucking expense.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if I want to spend more money.
I know, it's
tracking that
just the
right
way
now.
I see it is that whole project is supposed to be funded with LOT money.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like when you involve stuff that's paid for by the general fund, it just seems like to me that that's not a truthful statement. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, I
could
get
be
that,
wrong.
but I guess I don't agree with that. I think that the general fund is gonna make out better in the long run when we use that, because we do use topsoil every year. We do buy it every year. So we will see a savings in the general fund probably over the next 2 to 3 years, maybe longer, but we will use it. It's not like we're gonna stop replacing culverts or doing small projects, so I think we're better off in the end. I mean, maybe when things slow down next year, we can do an analysis of what the volume in that pile is to make it more definitive. I know it seems pretty subjective right now.
Besides the tree and the topsoil so far, are there any other things like that you foresee till the project's end?
Like I had mentioned, there was some culverts that got installed as kind of like a preparatory activity, and we're getting credit back on the site contract for that. There'll be the paving that's occurring at at the better rate. And then, to my knowledge, as of right now, that's it. That would be
Yeah.
it. And then there's the tree clearing. Yeah. And
It's
then,
cleaner that way.
I think, I'm just thinking about the topsoil. It sounds like if there's, it's a net benefit to the town. I think I'm just wondering, how do we tell that story? Like, how do we capture that in a way that, we can say to the town, if there's ever a question, if we're asked, like, in addition to building this, we also got this topsoil in the process, and
Mm-hmm.
here's what that meant, as far as, like, the story of us building the town hall and being able to, and I'm not sure how the best way to capture that would be, but just for our records, and I guess we have it in, the warrants and I guess in the work, but I don't know, I'm mumbling here, but I'm just trying to think of a way to,
I mean, having the discussion tonight, I think is adequate. Sure, and then later, if you like, we can have somebody, can pay someone to analyze how big that stack is and how many loads of topsoil we have. We know roughly how much material we get in a tandem. We just don't have the people to do that right now, and we did not staff this project with that level of people to do that. Hunter's there every day, but we can't pay Hunter 40 hours a week. It's here a lot, but not that much. So going forward, we have done this traditionally in almost every project we've done. We've used a little bit of work in kind. I mean, that's why the state allows it as a legitimate, as legitimate seed money from towns. You can use, your tandems and your people and your equipment to do the work in kind instead of outlaying cash on projects, on grants. So we have traditionally done that with the town projects, and we did that with the garage too. But if the five of you want to get together and talk about it, and you don't like doing that because it doesn't seem as transparent as you'd like, then you can. I would guess that it's probably going to elevate the cost of projects, but if it makes you feel better, we can do that going, on other projects. This one's kind of too far along to change that. But I still think we're good. I still feel good about it. Like the pavement is it's more than half the cost doing it the way we're doing it. So
Yeah.
I don't want to pay those inflated prices.
And the paving money's coming out of the LOT, or it's coming out of the general
The
fund?
paving money was coming out of, I believe, the paving line.
Okay.
Yep. And that's the way we did it for the garage as
Yeah.
well.
So if we put the paving in this, it would push the project over budget then? Most likely.
Not necessarily, but it would use up a good deal of the contingency that we're trying to hold.
Mhm.
I mean, over time, we certainly could pay it back if that's a problem. I haven't heard too many people.
the paving's going to be occurring in 2 phases for, obviously the weather's setting in. We don't want to get the finished paving in. So there would be kind of a second chance to look at that in the spring when we go to do the finished paving to see where we're at with our contingency line. Right now, obviously, the biggest risk in any project is getting out of the ground. And so right now we're just kind of trying to hold as much of that contingency as possible for the time being. Once the walls are up and you're weather tight, your risk level goes way down. And then we're just kind of competing with global supply chains at this point and whatever's going on with that, which is a crystal ball kind of scenario.
If we know how much the paving money's gonna be for the new town hall, certainly we could pay it out of the LOT fund.
We could do that. She's right.
Yeah.
But it might be nice we can talk about it, all 5 of you decide if that's what you'd like to do. We could do that once both lifts of paving are done.
Yeah, the point of this meeting is to kind of figure out how everyone's comfort level and how we want to pay for it. We have a fixed amount of money, that's with the rollover amount, 4.586, and we have these placeholders and we have certain things that we're going to have to get, security access control being the primary one, the first RFQ that went out. After that, we're going to need other things, signage like this, that's going to be on the list, and things we need for the certificate of occupancy that are owner furnished. We got to make sure those come in where our lines are. And then and then we get down to furniture and things like that we've got some more wiggle room on, and so we're kind of just trying to keep everyone in the loop and balance and stay within the budget right now. So I don't, last comment on the topsoil, don't have what that would be on the actual cost of the contract. We took a risk off the site guy, so he may have, everyone prices it differently. He may have seen that as less risk and then the price went down, or he may have looked at the Agency of Natural Resources maps and said, no, I would have raised the price because I could have been a penny pincher and sold the topsoil, but it's kind of an ethereal without knowing that number. I do know that, the trucking it out was scheduled for rain days, so it's kind of, keeping them busy doing something. So it's really the cost of fuel, which theoretically, like Carrie said, it's not hard math at this point, but you'd be spending that gas to go get, or fuel to go get it at a later date as well. So that's kind of where that decision had come from before the project even went out to bid.
Yeah. For me, I think this conversation was helpful just to, fully talk about like the pros and the cons, and I think what goes into the, what the bid might have been had we gone up front, and, so I think you're right. I think for this board in the future to talk about like what level we need to do, but putting it into the first part of the project planning and not after the fact being like, oh great, we should probably keep track of that. But talking about it and understanding it, I think at least for me, it's been helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
And as always, if you're curious, ask a question, ask me a question. Hunter's available all day and night, sadly for his family.
Yeah.
And, answers on just about all the time. All right, cool. And we have project meetings Wednesdays. As long as more than 2 of you don't show up, you can always come to a meeting.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to. Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. With advance notice, you come here. In fact, this Wednesday, we're going to be discussing the fun stuff, the finishes. So if anyone is free on Wednesday morning, they're bringing the sample board and the stain. So that's always a fun one.
Probably know less about that than any of the other stuff you do.
I don't. The painter never picks the colors. I don't ever deal with that. No, that's how everyone comes down on you later. This is dollars and cents. This is easy.
You good?
So is everybody okay to move on? Okay, all right,
Perfect.
thank you.
Yeah, no
Thanks,
problem.
Hunter.
Have a nice evening.
You too. All right, so we have warrants. Payroll. And then who usually does the infrastructure development and stormwater? Brendan do?
Brendan
All
does them,
right.
and then somebody else has to make a motion,
All
so
right.
moved on them.
All right, let's start with payroll.
Okay, so we have 2 payroll warrants here, one dated September 10th, 2021, in the total amount of $23,805.66. The next one's for September 17th in the amount of $22,361.04. And I'll make a motion that we accept both these payroll warrants.
Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Jonathan.
I have the general fund warrant dated September 17th, 2021. And the amount of $363,103.89. The biggest ticket item on there for $280,102 is for law enforcement for the Franklin County Sheriff's Department. I make a motion we approve this warrant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so I've got a few here. The infrastructure development warrant is $152,996.61, and that, the biggest one on there is to DEW construction for $139,000. And then I have the stormwater utility for $7,637.20. the industrial park warrant for $758.89. And then the fire department reserve for $52,330, and that is for a Ford F-350.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I got one question
Fire.
on the fire department reserve.
Yep.
That was like $52,000.
Mm-hmm.
Did we ever? What did we do with the old truck?
We haven't decided yet, actually. They told us it might be worth about 23,000. Haven't decided. I mean,
Okay, I didn't.
yeah.
I didn't know if like the new truck was like $80,000 or whatever.
Oh no, that's not a net. That's a good. They give us a good price.
Because I remember they're saying something. I thought they said like 26 for the trade-in. This was 6-8 months ago. Or
They
whatever
might
it
have
was.
said 26. I feel like it was closer.
So I forget
Remember?
what they said, but
31.
Oh, it was 31. I didn't think it was that
It's
high.
It's going over to ours, it's in our garage. And
Somebody's car alarm.
No, that's not mine.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. Bye. Bye, Hunter. Okay. Perfect.
It was his.
It was his. That's fine. Because I know we needed one of our trucks that we were using for parks was dying. What's it replacing at this point?
it's replacing the parts, crew cab. And we discussed that, and that's coming out of the impact fees.
That's right. All right. Yes, I did know about that.
And that's supposed to get transferred over to the fire department,
From the fire department.
to the fire department.
Oh,
Because they would have got the
okay.
trade-in, and we're buying it for the trade-in costs.
So the net to the fire department reserve will be the balance of that. So we'll be in the 20 somethings.
So we had a motion. Did we have a second?
We did, I did it.
Okay. So everybody in
Third call.
favor?
I
All right. So the minutes.
Oh, I was gonna just say, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from Wednesday, September 8th.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? So we are on to the assessor report. So we have the errors and omissions report from Bill. And is there discussion on this topic first? Bill's here.
There can be. I mean, Bill, can you hear us?
Yep.
All right, we can hear you. If you could talk a little bit loudly, because you're coming from the TV, not the speakers.
Sure, no problem. So everything here is pretty standard. Most of this stuff was brought to our attention after we filed the grant list. The first one that you see is Solar Sense. That's on me. I did not make the change in the build grant list as I should have. Fortunately, it does not affect the municipal grant list at all. This is all education dollars as far as the education grant list goes. So it's no impact whatsoever. Then I think the only other one that really needs explanation would probably be the third one down, and that's Andrew and Joanne Beachard. There's a new development called the Let Drive. The Beachards came in to see me, indicating that they wanted the roads and other lands that are not included with their individual lot to be assessed separately. Well, we can't transfer an ownership to a homeowners association until we actually have a transfer. And so I explained that to the Beachards, that they need to create this homeowners association so they can take over that road. The problem is that they have not done so, but they can also not enjoy or use any of those roads that are in that extra, I think it's like 2.1 acres of land. So what we needed to do is to take that acreage off of their assessment and only assess them for the 3.45 acres, which is that which surrounds the house. And they brought that to my attention I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago. The second page, occasionally we have a property owner that buys a piece of property and they want to know why the assessment's so high. This property was purchased for $73,000, and it's currently assessed for $234,400. I indicated to the owner that I would look into it, go visit the property, see if there weren't any obvious quantitative or factual errors, and found that there is a slab on the property which used to have a garage, and so that needs to be addressed. Once we do that, then the property owner will be able to come in and visit with me to discuss the details of the property. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. Everything else is pretty straightforward. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to address any concerns.
Anybody have any questions for Bill? All right.
Here are no questions. I guess we'll look for a motion and a signature and signatures.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the errors and omissions?
So moved.
Second?
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
We're good, Bill. Thank you. Motion carries. Carry. Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, so it looks like we're on to the VLCT annual business meeting voting delegate.
So that, I know it can be a little dry, but it is kind of an interesting process to watch. I revised this from what I had indicated earlier, because I can actually virtually attend the 1 o'clock meeting. So I will be there for a few hours. If nobody else can go, I can try to stay for that other meeting, but it is kind of interesting to watch. You know, I don't know who will show up at this point. Usually it's a good 100 people debating policy. It's the policy that the LCT operates on the rest of the year. So there's interest, awesome. You can be that voting delegate if you want. I can try to be that voting delegate. I will be there for the VERB meeting, the Employee Resource Board meeting that VLCT has. It's our annual meeting along with our insurance carrier passive property and casualty insurance VLCT fund as well.
So, anybody want to take Carrie's place?
So you did a good job selling it. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Policy and-
Yep, it's exciting
The
policy
insurance and
work, the
stuff,
municipal geek, and I think Corey would be great at this myself, but he might be busy, so
Maybe next year.
maybe next year, maybe next year. So, I know.
I've got a hair appointment otherwise.
Oh,
I'd
yeah,
sit here.
yeah, oh, here we go. That's awesome. I mean, it's important to have somebody there, but I don't always even make a point of talking, you know how shy I am, so, I mean, as long as we're all kind of in this similar boat, you know, just trying to do the right thing for our community, but, so anyway, either way, we need to nominate someone today and officially make a motion that they're gonna be the town's delegate.
So that person would have to be there physically at that event? Or
No, you could do it virtually.
Okay, all right. And you're saying that you could do it virtually?
I can.
Okay.
I am gonna be doing it virtually. I'm taking
Okay.
someone for some procedure thing that takes all day long, but I'm, you know, just gonna be hanging out with some good Wi-Fi, hopefully. And snacks.
Yep.
All right, does anyone want to make a motion on who we should send?
Make it a surprise.
I'll make a motion to send Carrie virtually as our delegate to the LTC annual business meeting.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you,
perfect.
Carrie.
Awesome, thank you. Next is public comment. I know that we have Steve Cushing here to make a comment. I will say before he starts that there's a 5-minute time limit. I know that Steve wants to talk about stormwater as it pertains to the weed harvester. And, you know, you've all gotten a memo from Emily, so the summary of which tonight isn't supposed to be a debate about the validity or the lack of the weed harvester at this point. She's still researching things. But Steve wanted to make some comments. And Steve, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, so We can hear you, but not very loudly, so you don't have to yell, but if you could talk as loudly as you can comfortably, that would be helpful.
Okay, so I did not want to talk about stormwater. That wasn't what this is about.
Okay, I misspoke.
I feel that, first of all, that to give a little history of weed harvesting, we started weed harvesting back in 2005, and we contracted the service through a outfit called Aquatic Control Technologies out of Massachusetts. And the cost of that annually was $30,000. And a lot of that was where we got our funding from was through a grant through the state of Vermont. And over the years, the state of Vermont started to reduce the amount of grant amounts. And so we had an opportunity to purchase a weed harvester out of West Virginia, which we did. And it's a large machine. It has a capacity of 420 bushels, and it's made by Aquarius Systems. We started operating that and reduced our budget down to probably around 22,000 a year. And then in 2015, we purchased another weed harvester from the town of Franklin because they had replaced that weed harvester, which, interesting enough, the town of St. Albans sold that to the town of Franklin back in the 1980s. And it was a tired machine, but we thought it was worthwhile for $2,000 to rehab it. And so we've had that and operated that since 2015. Our annual budget right now is $25,000, of which the town of St. Albans contributes $7,500. And the city of St. Albans contributes $10,000, and the town of Georgia contributes $2,500. And we also get a grant of somewhere around 25 or around $4,500 through the state of Vermont. We operate under a mechanical weed harvesting permit, which was obtained by the town of St. Albans, and we had to amend the permit when we purchased the weed harvest. The original permit was through contracting aquatic control technologies. So we've been operating now this is our 18th season. And to give you an idea of what we're doing, we harvest, and I've given you a packet, so all the numbers are there, but in 2020, we harvested 2,794 tons of weeds. And in this year, we've harvested 2,890 approximately tons of weeds. In those weeds are a lot of nutrients. We're removing what would normally decay in the bottom of the lake and just add to the muck layer on the bottom. So there are other benefits to weed harvesting, which we've seen over the years. And I'm not sure if anybody in this group has actually seen a weed harvester, but it's like watching turtles when they're actually operating. But one of the really big benefits of it is when we remove these large weed beds, it allows the water to circulate and wave action to take place. When you leave the weeds in and they've surfaced on the top of the water, there's no wave action, and you'll see that there's not wave action getting into shore. So you have areas where the water is stagnant, and that's really will start to feed the algae bloom. And when those weeds decompose, they also raise the water temperature in the areas where they're decomposing, which creates algae blooms. So we really see that there's a couple of big benefits besides just making it where areas where boat traffic can't get through, we can remove the weeds, and it's really beneficial. One of the things that maybe Carrie's confused a little bit is because Emily made some statements at our annual meeting And somebody asked if any money from the stormwater utility fee would go to weed harvesting. And she said, well, there's discussion within the higher ups, as she said, that maybe weed harvesting isn't beneficial. And so I'm here to tell you that it is, but also she said there's alternative to weed harvesting. And one of those was hand pulling.
Okay, that's
And
5 minutes.
Can I
Sorry.
finish, please? I'd like to just finish this one aspect of this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the select board's decision, but I hear no objection.
I'd like to hear a little more.
You know, and her example was the hand pulling they use divers down on Lake George. And I looked up their annual report for weed harvesting. It's a different body of water. There's smaller pockets. It probably doesn't lend itself to a mechanical weed harvester, but they hire somewhere between 26 and 28 divers a year. And they harvested 93 tons of weeds, which I thought was quite impressive. But the total cost of that was $508,000, which is way beyond, I believe, our means. And I don't think that hand pulling in St. Albans Bay would be very effective, nor very productive, nor cost effective. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to just throw out to you guys, is that for your contribution of $7,500 annually, plus co-authoring a grant from the state of Vermont, as again, we're getting 2,890 tons of weeds for $2,500, of which the town's contribution is the 75. And I want to emphasize that I think, you know, this operation, you know, we pay in that budget, we pay all liability insurances, we pay workman compensation insurance for 2 employees. And I think we're getting a big bang for a buck. If anyone has any questions, I'd really welcome those.
No, thank you for sharing that information. I think it's good for us to hear.
You have the annual report from last year, plus some other information regarding the benefits, disadvantages. There are, like anything, disadvantages to weed harvesting, but I think on the whole that it's, you know, the benefits way outweigh the short-term, you know, detriments. So anyways, thanks for listening.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Steve.
thank you. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what the latest science is, but then there is always a big cost factor too, so.
Yeah, and I'll speak quickly. I think, you know, just with that, I'm always looking at the potential for grant money from the state to pay for that. And the difference is the science of effectively just mowing the lawn versus like removing what Lake George is finding that when they remove it by hand, it's been gone for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually like pulling the root. So it's a different solution. So it may be more expensive up front, but might be cheaper in the long run if you're not having to do it. So we're just watching the science. Is all we're saying, is seeing what's going on. And you know, I think with water quality, we have to continue to question the practices we're doing to, you know, till we see the improvement we want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Can I just make one comment about that?
Well, this really isn't supposed to be a debate, but sure. I mean, at some point in the future, we're going to talk about it, Steve. I'm not confused. This wasn't the time to do it.
Okay, well, I'd really welcome that then, to be able to come in and actually, you know, and answer questions like, you know, what that gentleman just brought up. I think what we've observed over 18 years is that we're not seeing the spread of weeds throughout the bay, and the areas actually are getting smaller. And although we're still seeing, in areas where there's heavy sedimentation, that's where the abundant weed growth is. Anyways, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the town manager's report.
Awesome. So I have, the first one is actually informational at this point. Speed limit change was discussed, I believe, early in the summer. Can't remember the exact date. And often people do express concern about the speed at which people are traveling on our roads, almost universally. Those of us that live near a road are offended at those traveling by at such a fast speed. So I knew that it was driven largely by statute, but I didn't know which ones. So Bethany, who's a transportation specialist at Regional, sent us some of the questions that she's often asked, which were, I thought, really helpful, and the manual itself. And we have 50, how many miles? 58 miles, I was gonna say 53, of which I think maybe one is not paved and it's a class 4 road. Well, we have 55 miles and we have one unpaved class 4 road, I think, maybe 1.5. So we're not gonna be changing roads without actually getting a study. But that doesn't mean we can't do it, it just means it takes a little bit longer. Regional planning a few years ago was doing a few roads a year if a community asked us to. So I mean, if there's some roads that we think are problematic, Alan goes to those TAC meetings, the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings, TAC, and stays in touch with that aspect of regional planning, which is probably, to me, it's one of its most important roles. But so we could do it. We just can't. We just have to do it strategically and know that it's going to take a bit of time.
Are there any roads that people call more often about?
I don't think so, but I mean, that's what we're hoping Polymorphic is going to help us do. I mean, we are actively logging complaints. They tend to fall on the roads that have more volume, and that's why they're class 2 roads, not class 3. Some, I guess, class 2 roads are getting more complaints, like Raquan, other roads like that. But that's because they get more traffic too. Yeah, so I don't think we have any one road. I mean, you can look at the monthly reports from the sheriff's department, and they're trying to get more aggressive with speed calming. And I've heard comments that people are noticing that, so I'm hoping that will actually change behavior. They seem very reactive, so let's hope. But yeah, so right now I don't have any. I don't have a short list.
It seems like having the police officer or police step up
Yes.
enforcement, number one, is quicker. It probably costs less. I mean, I don't know what a traffic study costs, although it looks like maybe Corey could do it or something. But
they're not that expensive, actually. They
Yeah.
I mean, that's why regional planning does a few a year, but they have traffic counters. I think often mechanical. I don't think they're always somebody, an intern sitting there and counting cars, but they do that as well, I know. Yeah, so if you start, maybe by, as far as next steps, if we get a lot of complaints and we can actually analyze that number, we can ask next year for regional planning to help us.
I mean, it seems like, I don't know, I guess I'm just thinking, 'cause I think some people probably have lower Newton.
Yes.
And I don't remember what we said the speed limit is 40 or 50, but somebody tells me it's irrelevant. It says, right?
Did you really say that on purpose?
Oh, I just.
It was a little contest between Alan and Brendan.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
well, anyway, but,
That's awesome.
roads like that, it seems like it's more about enforcement.
Yes.
I don't think someone driving that road
Yep.
sees the speed limit and necessarily alters how fast they're going.
It doesn't, and I had a traffic engineer explain that to until I was kind of, my eyes and ears were bleeding, but there's scientific information to back that up. You can't just put a sign up and change the speed limit by 10 or 15 degree miles per hour. They're already not compliant. You can't make it more non-compliant, is what she said to me, which stuck.
Yeah, and maybe it's the result of the sheriffs, but I have noticed, I mean, I do 50 on Lower Newton, and I would get passed all the time, and it hasn't happened in the past few months, so maybe that is the enforcement making a difference.
Nice.
You're not going faster though, right?
I stop right at 50.
Just kidding.
That's the maximum limit.
For the record.
Because I think some of the other suggestions people brought up were was it regarding Fairfax Street or whichever the one
Yeah.
leads up to the other Fairfax, where they suggested putting a stop sign, right? And does this include that, or is this just speed limits? I read
I
through
didn't
a lot of
ask her
this.
about everything, but our motor vehicle ordinance lists stop signs, stop lights, no parking areas, and speed limit signs. So
So they're all handled the same way?
they are all covered by that motor vehicle ordinance, and the stop sign that person was asking for was off Thorpe, in the middle of Fairfax Street, which is just not likely to happen for a very long time. You're not gonna stop traffic on this main road for the person coming from that neighborhood. At this point, I'm pretty sure traffic counts wouldn't warrant a stop sign there. And I don't think the neighbors would like it. You get a lot more braking, or hopefully braking noise and all that. So more to come on that, but just a little something
That
for you to
was helpful.
nod.
actually.
Yeah, it
It's
gives us some
interesting
direction.
with the 30 to 50. Above 50 is like very tough to do. Below 30 stuff. And
Mhm.
so interesting.
Yep. Yeah, there is scientific stuff behind that.
Mhm.
I think people just think we arbitrarily come up with speeds, but we actually don't. So now you know if somebody calls about no parking. Like in one of the last motor vehicle ordinance updates, we added no parking areas like all bridges. Seems obvious, wasn't illegal to park there before. Anyway, we're trying to make it safer without being too intrusive. B, Parks Ordinance and Policy Draft. I think I have these in no particular order, yeah. I don't know if it's ready to be approved, but the Parks Committee worked really hard on separating what belonged in an ordinance, and what would conversely work better as a policy. So Jen sent you a ton of paper, but they separated the two out, which, I think worked really well, especially because we often seem to talk about opening and closing and changing the times. Hunting comes up every once in a while. And some of those things at least were put into the policy version, which you can change and becomes effective immediately.
And Carrie, help me remember, I think the ordinance is more public facing, so that's what we're sharing with the public.
Yes, that's correct.
Yep,
Yes.
and then the policy is more of like what we are doing or what the town is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that
this-
actually seems to stick better than.
Yeah, that's what when we went through it, we're like, what would we wanna call the police on? Like, what would be breaking a rule that you'd want some help on, whereas the policy is more, this is what we'd like to see as a town.
Yeah.
It had like when it's gonna open, approximately
Mhm.
when it's gonna close.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, I'd love to give you a little bit of homework to read it and come back at our next meeting. I don't want it to languish too long, but hopefully we can get it approved in a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks. 2 weeks or 4, so that it's kind of cleaned up before we get into budget season.
And we talked a lot about it last time.
Right.
But as I read through it, I was trying to figure out if smoking is allowed or not, and I couldn't quite figure it out.
We never prohibited it.
It seems to reference somewhere else in the paper. I just couldn't figure out what it was referencing. But
Well,
anyway,
on
just
the
just
what
to be able to
page is
think
that
about
on?
it. maybe.
We
It's
asked.
in like the 6th area, like 6
Mhm.
something.
Well, we asked that they refrain from it. We had signs made for the park that asked people not to smoke in the park. And it seems to have worked. You probably were talking about Amy Brewer's report on butts and how many she picked up, and it seems to be getting better. But we did not prohibit it. The board at that time, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but didn't want to go that far. Some people can do it responsibly. Some people do it
Yep.
with you having your picnic lunch right here, and they're upwind of you. So we were just encouraging people not to do it in the public park.
Well, if you look at 6.3.19, it says, except as otherwise provided, smoking including vaping, is prohibited at all municipal properties.
But if you keep reading though, and then it says,
Mhm.
okay, maybe I'm just, then it goes on to possession, I guess.
Is prohibited in the smoke-free
Prohibited in
areas
smoke-free
previously
areas.
mentioned. That is kind of confusing.
That's what I mean, I was
Like,
just reading it, and I was trying to make heads or
Yeah.
tails, I mean,
It seems prohibited to me, but I don't know what does 519 say?
I think that's just the definition.
definition of what.
Oh,
is in
okay.
it,
Yeah.
so. I guess it's just that first clause of except as otherwise provided herein. That's what threw me off. I couldn't find
Yeah.
anywhere else where it says one way or the other. So, and you're suggesting, Carrie, we read this and come back next time with,
Yeah, with some comments,
Okay.
feedback, anything you love, anything you don't love ahead of time would be great, so we could give you a clean copy, but, I mean, the next meeting is October 4th, so you could get us the changes by the last day of the month, that would be great, so that we can, print you a copy on October 1st. I just remember a rather lengthy discussion about tobacco products in the park, and the board kind of settling on we'd prefer you not do it, but we just short of prohibiting it.
I
Well, I
thought they
think there
did
was-
initially, and there were signs, but I thought like last year or 2 years ago, we did prohibit it.
Did we?
Yeah, we talked about it getting enforced.
But did we change the ordinance?
That I don't.
I don't remember changing the ordinance at that time. There is signs and we put them back up, actually,
Yeah.
recently.
Because when I read it, to me, it seems like it's prohibited, because there isn't any except,
yeah, there's just that
Yeah.
first clause that
Yeah.
maybe should be removed.
yeah.
I wonder if the clause is there kind of like what we have for alcohol. It's like you can, if it's for a special event, it can be allowed. So I wonder if, you know,
I don't think that was our intent, but
Oh.
Yeah, they're allowed, but.
Yeah.
all right, well, we'll look at it and do some homework, myself included then, because Jen probably will, I don't know if she remembers, but I know we've revised this about every year, so.
I'm just
Amy
reading
Brewer
it, it seems like
probably
each sentence says something different, and they're exclusive
Yeah, and which
of each other.
sections? I couldn't find
Just
one,
that
but,
6.3.19. I mean, I'm reading it again, the first sentence makes it sound like it's prohibited except as otherwise provided. Then the next sentence says the possession of lighted tobacco products in any form is prohibited in the smoke-free areas previously mentioned in 5.19.
That is very
So that's why I was confused reading it, but we would just make that clear one way or the other.
Yeah, because it's saying all municipal properties, and then it's saying in the smoke-free areas, which is
Well,
kind of redundant.
I mean, I think state law is that municipal buildings are supposed to be smoke-free, but do we really? All right, so we'll
Yeah, I
work.
guess, and,
Got it.
you know, just if it needs to say this way, or if we can make it more clear.
Mm-hmm.
Smoking is prohibited.
That sounds so simple.
It's probably wrong, but.
No, I don't know. All right, something to work on, 6.3.19. And anything else, actually, if you read it in the interim. Parks are starting to slow down a little, but we have quite a bit of traffic in October. I know that, well, this next one should be, so are we good to go on?
Yes.
Okay. The next one is the budget schedule. Hopefully that's kind of quick. Initially, I heard there was some talk about it. I put the dates I had originally scheduled it for, which was the budget meetings on October 11th and on October 25th.
The 25th, I now have a standing meeting the 4th Monday of the month for
Okay.
work that I didn't have a month ago
Okay.
because I have a new job.
So you just can't make the 10/25 meeting.
Yeah.
then. But if we did it on the 11th and then the first, like November 8th, then we did 10, 11, and 11, 8.
And so we wouldn't be using because we were talking about using like the first hour before the select board meetings as a work session as well for like the 4th and the 18th, I think previously. We're not gonna do that.
18th I'll be gone.
For some reason, I thought we had like 4 budget days we were all trying to get on like the Mondays in October initially. And that's why I was,
We could try that. I've never done that. I mean, but
no, that wasn't I think I must have misread it. That's all I'm saying.
no, that's all right. But I
Yeah.
mean, if everyone can start at 5:30, usually when we start with like Department of Public Works and Parks and fire, and that usually takes a good 2.5 hours.
Well, I brought it up last time because October 4th I can't make select board meeting.
Okay.
And so that's why I was concerned. I thought maybe we had a budget
Yep.
meeting before that, and so if that wasn't part of the plan, then I'm okay with it.
I don't think I was gonna do that. People
Okay.
get I'd like you all fresh for the budget meeting.
Mhm.
And if we do this, we could do it in a total of like 4 meetings,
Mhm.
maybe a few more short ones, but
Mhm.
then we could do that,
Mhm.
before a meeting in January.
Okay. Yep.
I'd say don't book your Mondays in January, because we have a very tight timeline in
Yeah.
January to get
Mhm.
stuff done.
Okay.
So right now, let's do it on 10, 11, and 10 and 11, November 8th as the budget meetings.
Okay.
Okay, that
You
sounds.
say that one more time.
Yep.
Yep.
10, 11, so October 11th,
Yep.
and November 8th.
Thank you.
I said 11 a lot, so I was confusing myself. But. And while we're on, I'm gonna do Emily next, and then maybe quickly go with Anna. Anna wanted to do a short report, but so Emily's on here. I know can't stay on all night. Can you hear us, Emily?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, so Emily is here to go over, and Corey, if Corey could come up, he helped Emily work on this budget. It was requested, I think, that there be an overview of where we are right now on the stormwater budget. I think we had originally planned to do this in like November, so I'm glad that both Corey and Emily moved it up a couple months. We can talk about it today. Go ahead, Emily, you're on. Just speak as loud as you can, please.
Okay, will do. So hopefully I captured accurately what you were looking for, but Corey said that you wanted sort of a current total of our expenditures and where we stand with what we've brought in to the utility so far with our utility fees. So I tried to capture all of that and then explanation on the right-hand side. But essentially, we have brought in about $395,000. We have money coming in online, and then also money coming in NEMRIC directly to the clerk's office. And so there's a little bit of play between the numbers, but that as of, I think Anna and I met last week. So as of last Thursday or Friday, whenever we worked it all out, that was what we tallied up. And of that, not much has gone out yet because my administrative transfer, I don't think, if I'm misspeaking, correct me, Anna, I don't think my administrative transfer from the general fund that has covered my expenses up through now, I don't think that's been repaid to the general fund, right?
No.
So,
no.
yeah, so I think there's a little, like, it's a little bit of back and forth on this sheet because some stuff actually has come out of stormwater. Some things it's just a reflection of what we're projecting. And also in here under engineering, I have an engineer under contract to redesign Tanglewood for $26,900. So we know we're on the hook for that. That'll be this fiscal year. It's already active and in the works, but they haven't sent us a bill yet. So it's not in the expenditures, but we know we have to account for it any day. I guess, so if you have questions going through it, I guess let me know. That's probably the easiest place to start.
I'd highlight too, some of the revenue issues are our larger accounts. We allowed them to pay quarterly. Anyone who got a bill more than $1,000 can pay the bill quarterly. So some of that money will continue to trickle in. We were planning to send late notices in a few months, just because payments still kind of trickle in. We know it's a new fee, people understanding to pay it. And as Emily said, we really wanted to know, because it doesn't look like much has been spent yet. We have hired not only the engineering for Tanglewood, we've hired the engineer for the phosphorus control plan and the IDDE work. It just takes till about from now till April to get done, so we'll get monthly bills for that. But we know we can't spend it, and we've also applied for a grant to construct Tanglewood. So we're kind of accounting for what we think we'd expend in this fiscal year if the grant were to come through. We don't want to go over and make too many commitments, somehow get lucky, get them all, and then look for money. So as we apply for a grant or hire somebody, we're just on the back end removing it from our budget, even though we haven't paid for it, just because we know we've already allocated those dollars, if you will.
So besides, just kind of a list, Tanglewood, and what else do you think might be done in, say, the next 12 months? Or I know Tanglewood may not be done, but in terms of committing to something and moving forward?
Could you repeat that?
In terms of like projects, I hear you mentioning Tanglewood is something you're currently working on. I don't know, maybe say in the next 12 months, like what projects do you think we might be actually tackling and getting started on?
So Tanglewood is actively in final design. I met the engineers on site on Friday. We have to do a little bit of survey, camera some of the lines. So the grant that I applied for, we're proposing to start construction spring of 2022. So April, realistically, ideally it would go out to bid in January, and then the contractor would start work in April. And then there's also a municipal stormwater mitigation grant available right now that V-Trans puts out, which is a really good one because they provide 80%. So it's only a 20% match for the town. And that one, to qualify for it, you have to go all the way through the design process and implementation with them. And so it's usually more like a 3-year time frame to complete it. So I'm planning to apply for that one. It's due October 1st for Clyde Allen, for another gravel wetland. That would capture Clyde Allen. It would deal with their expired permit, and then it would also add some adjacent properties to it. So that would be the next one. And sort of the thought process on that is that it would just be design realistically for 2022. It wouldn't be implementation until 2023. And so it would cushion the budget a little bit, but we would secure the funds up front. And then the other one that we're actively working on is partnering with the city and V-Trans for a gravel wetland that would treat water coming off of Sash, part of Grice Brook, and a little bit of the school parking lot. And the city has designed the system already and would be willing to use the site that's located sort of just straight across from the Sash, pretty much, for a gravel wetland there. But that one is $480,000 just for implementation. So that's a little bit of a heavier lift to get the funding for it.
Yeah, and on that one, we own a certain percentage of the water is technically our water, so the city pays their portion, the state pays their portion. We basically pick up the Grice Brook, so we wouldn't own that full 480, our utility. The city might.
Yeah, I think we have 48% of it.
48%. So if we went out and got a grant, would be nice, and then we'd owe 48% of that piece. So those are the ones. I think the hard part too is we only have our flow restoration plan done. Our phosphorus control plan that's getting done for April it'll probably be similar projects, but when we build a project, we don't want to just build it for flow restoration if it also could take care of the phosphorus issue. So these ones we feel pretty safe going after right now, but we'll reprioritize projects once the phosphorus control plan comes in to just start working down the most efficient path there. That being said, Tanglewood is our top priority, or one of the top priorities in our flow restoration plan, as well as we hired the same engineer to do the the phosphorus control, and they agree that there's an opportunity there. So we just know that one's been a big issue for the town for a number of years, and we're working towards getting it done.
That's right. I mean, obviously, I think with people paying that bill, it's good for them to see progress being made with it. So
Yeah, we agree. And like I said, we'll pay back. I mean, I think some of just if you're gonna ask the question like administrative, we budgeted 60,000. Why did 62 go over? Because we paid for things that we originally budgeted for to come out of Emily's budget ahead of time, but like the actual billing of the utility and some of the education postcards we sent out. So that got eaten up in there. But no, things tend to be on track. The folks with questions has slowed down, but we've managed to talk to most folks about what's happening and what the goal is to get the projects done.
So that's 71% of folks that have, or that's not necessarily 71% of people looking at the stormwater fees. Since there are the quarterly payments that still need to come in, and it's not exactly, 51 single ERU for that. Do we have a sense of the percentage of folks that got a bill that might be needing to get a reminder in November?
Perhaps I can answer that. So we're expected to bill out like 531,000, and we've received about 391. So the folks that didn't get a bill, or we can rebill them, or
Yeah, we're gonna send notices. Some I don't have the number of individual accounts. We can certainly get that for you off the top of my head. But I know Emily, she was asking, do you have the percentage of accounts paid instead of just the dollar amount?
Oh, so I think we're at about 3,100 accounts now. And I don't know the percent of I could get it easily, but I don't know it. I haven't done it out.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, they would love that number.
Yeah, but like one of them, like the state of Vermont V-Trans is paid, but like Parks and some of the other ones haven't paid, and those are larger ones. The railroad just paid their bill, which again is the benefit of doing it the way this fee was funded. The state of Vermont's paying about, I'd just like to say this publicly to keep getting the message out. $87,000 roughly is coming in from the state of Vermont. $19,000 is coming in for the railroad. They don't pay taxes. These are expenses we have to do. Had this gone on the property tax, there's a penny on the property tax rate there for this work to get done that isn't being paid for by property taxpayers. Organizations that, the railroad has more money than any of us, and so it's nice to have them chip into the problem.
Any other questions about the budget right now? I mean, you should see this fairly often as well. It's just a
And
first stab at it.
I think you guys saw your first stormwater warrant. You'll start to see the warrants as the expenses go out. I think the only thing that's going to be a little wonky is our payroll company can't take out of a separate account. So I think Emily's benefits will continue to be floated, and then we'll either figure out monthly or quarterly where the stormwater utility reimburse our fund, but Anna is working on that. So I think that's the only kind of wonky thing that we'll have to figure out.
is it? Does it seem like it's, I don't want to say self-sustaining, but is there money coming in, and then the other quarterly bills? Do we feel like we're on pace where it's kind of on its own now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got plenty of money. We got more money from, like I said, I don't think our payment from the state has come in. We get $25,000 annually for having a utility, just for having one from the state, in addition to that $89,000 or whatever we bill them. So that I don't think has come in. But yeah, we can sustain where we are. I think this year will probably run a little bit of a surplus just because we're getting going, and You know, we're like
Mhm.
Emily said, we can engineer it, but by the time we get the engineer rolling, like we might not have a project ready to go in the ground by June 30. You know, anything that gets done after then goes into next fiscal year. So some of it will roll over, like Tanglewood, even if it starts in April, may go to August. And so the expenses may end up in next fiscal year.
Sure.
I think on the budget sheet, I have 75% of the Tanglewood construction occurring within the fiscal year. And then accounting for the additional 25 in the following year.
And to be clear on the Tanglewood too, I think when we talk about these costs, if we were to get the grant, the state would pay for half. The utility would only pay for about a quarter. And then the homeowners at Tanglewood, because it is a private road, and there's the agreement we've had in the past with them is that they pay half of the town's share of it, and they've continued to agree to those terms. So, you know, you're looking at building a pretty expensive project with not a ton of money out of the utility.
It's exciting to see this.
And like I've told people, and we'll continue to tell you guys, our website, when we build projects, we'll have an update on our website, what we built, where we built, what the impact was going to be, and you know what the cost is, so people can monitor that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great work.
And I think we may have asked something about it last time, about, which is an unknowable probably question, but are we also able to use some kind of data from the actual lake, the bay, to correlate it in the future? Like, it seems like it made this much difference. I know there's a lot of variables for the bay, including outside of the bay itself, but I mean, is there anything that we might be able to tie to that in the future to say we made this much? Or I don't know, maybe it's Black Creek is cleaner, you know, I mean, something like that.
I mean, there's a number of them. Emily can probably speak to it better than I can, but like the IDDE is the illicit discharge. We had to do that study about 10 years ago, and I think we have to do it every 10. And basically, they come in and they measure where we have discharge. You know, they monitor some of these discharges and outflows,
Yep.
and then give us a list of things to fix, and then we hopefully go fix them over the next 10 years, and then they come back and inspect and do the same thing. That's a requirement. So like that's one, we're going to see how well we did over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we'll have that report soon, you know, next year in the spring, and you know, we'll hopefully 10 years from now, that'll identify projects as well for us as well.
Just also, you know, one more point, I guess. I mean, it's one thing I think for all of our residents to look around and see all the projects getting done, and that's great. Just want to make sure, hopefully, it makes a difference in that bay. You know, the dogs can go swimming without getting killed.
Well, the phosphorus control plan is our biggest enemy, right? So that has very defined success stories. So, I mean, Emily will be able to explain why we think there's an improvement instead of just having it subjective.
Yeah, it's multivariate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll be shocked. I know this from my legislative role. I am how expensive it is to remove 1 pound of phosphorus.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars per pound. It's why prevention from ever getting it is still the best, but you know, we can only manage, you know, kind of what's coming off the roads and the others. But you know, it's a very expensive endeavor.
We good for now?
I got one question.
Okay.
Who's doing the engineering of these projects?
We had engineers for we had an engineering firm who designed the plans for Tanglewood, and Emily, who's an engineer herself, reviewed them, and they were not adequate. So we hired a different firm to design it right. Alderton Elliott is finishing up the design work. So a typical plan at Tanglewood would have been in the 50s, you know, $50,000 range. They're doing the final plans to make the adjustments on those, and so that was the key there. You know, and I think something for us to watch as we go out to competitive bid, not just always picking the cheapest, but picking the right engineering firm because we basically have expensive plans that were done a couple years ago for Tanglewood that don't meet standards. So that was eye-opening for us on some level. And then Watershed Associates is doing our IDDE and our phosphorus control plan.
Most of if we apply for grant funding, especially like the V-Trans, the ones that do the 80-20 match, they require us to go through an at-the-ready process or an FRP process to select an engineer and contractor for the construction. So you have to go through their steps. And then the grant that I applied for Tanglewood is a clean water block grant. You have to get your contractor or engineer approved with them as well. So it's usually a process, and with V-Trans, they have 6 or 7 select firms that you can choose from, or you have to put it out to bid, do an RFP and put it out to bid to get somebody not on their list.
And the firm that designed the Tanglewood one that we're adjusting did our one in the industrial park that isn't working as well. So that also causes pause to concern to use their design.
I don't know.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
We're almost done. I promise. I'm just trying to touch my tongue, of course. I'm not going. So I don't think I'm gonna go into E here in great detail at this point because Brendan's not here and he was kind of spearheading that.
Okay.
We did get some complaints from residents on the affiliation fee, and we're all aware of that. I'm just not gonna preach to this specific choir right now, but I think we don't want to forget about it, and I'll probably put it on the next meeting unless there's any objections or. But Anna did want to just briefly go over, are you still there? The bank reconciliation sheet that she sent you.
Oh, yeah.
You're there. Just as an overview of the finances this month.
It's as of August 31st. So we do have LOT money that I have to add in September. And of course, stormwater is happening every single day in September.
So many of these accounts, as you've seen before, they are restricted funds. You can't spend them on anything but what the title indicates. Impact fees, that's all of our impact fees all across the departments.
I will have a reconciliation for you for each cost center in the impact fee, as far as government, parks, fire department, roads,
Very good.
at your next meeting. For FY 21.
Are there any specific finance questions for Anna?
I was gonna say, I like the report, Anna, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I don't have any questions at the moment because I'm still kind of absorbing what I'm reading. But I like it.
Those are all the different accounts that we have. If you have any questions, just let me or Carrie know.
Okay, great. Yeah, this will be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I mean, Anna does this every month, so if it's something you want to track, let me know. Sometimes just we talk about it and then I file it, but yeah. The general fund obviously is much healthier than it was a few months ago because we're getting taxes in.
Keep in mind, I have not paid the school first.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
And that's 80% of our money, but you
Yeah.
know, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's it for me under town manager's report, and you want me to?
We talked about the schedule
We
already.
did, we did.
The chair's report, I didn't really prepare for that, but
We're banking on that.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm speaking for myself.
I will point out though, I hope everybody's gone to the park to see the new Champ sculpture, and I want to thank John Montaigne for getting that going and finding the artist and having the vision for it. All I did was find someone to help us write the grant, and Coy Boynton wrote the grant and got us $10,000 from the Vermont Arts Council. And I just think it looks awesome out there. It's really cool to be walking around the
I hope
path and
people
see
know,
that.
do they know they can climb on it, the kids? Because it
I don't
looks
know.
awesome, but I want people to know it's interactive, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
He made it strong enough that it could be climbed on.
People driving by there and taking pictures.
Yes.
Is there like some signage there? Like this is
They're working
Like-
on it. They're
Yeah,
working
there
on
is
it.
supposed to be. I don't think it's up yet though.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be some kind of ribbon cutting. The grant that funded it would like to do an event for their.
Yeah, that's something I'm working on right now, and Corey's gonna approve it before we get it printed.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's one post there that doesn't have a sign, and there's a land acknowledgement that the Abenaki wrote and gave to the Parks Committee, so that's gonna be on the post, which I think will be a really nice addition.
It's cool.
I was wondering though, like, are there any sort of security cameras in the park? It's like, I just hope people don't touch it at night, you know?
We might have to, we have Wi-Fi there. Those little security cameras I have are pretty inexpensive and fairly easy to install.
Yeah.
Might have to do that. All right, so no questions on the budget right now, but obviously,
I just got a quick one, Carrie.
yes.
On the infrastructure development fund, is
Yeah.
any of that money slated to go towards a project as of today?
All of it.
It's going to,
Until through February, I think it was, through the February
Okay.
payment, we're getting about $250,000, not quite all of that every single quarter, but, yep.
okay.
Mm-hmm. So we have 1.3, it's not, you
Yep.
know, we're not trying to hide it, but.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome.
All right, so looks like it's time for, well, does anybody have any other business? Okay. So we're going, oh, sorry, Ellen.
No, it's all right. Just one thing is, this Saturday is the Fall Festival at the park. Starts at noon. Nobby Reed is playing. There's a chili competition, so if you wanna submit your chili, you think you got the recipe to cut it, enter.
Who are the judges?
John's working on the judges.
Oh.
Yeah, all the farmer markets will be there, crafters, music. Looks like the weather's gonna be good, so get the family and come on down.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good weather, I think, too.
So it looks like we're going into executive session. So does somebody want to make the motion?
Primarily for legal, it'll be quick.
Okay.
Alright, I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues where premature general public knowledge of the subject matter would place the town or person involved at a substantial disadvantage. And further move to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of Vermont statutes, and to invite the director,
Town
the
manager, sorry,
yeah,
I led you astray there.
yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Cut and paste,
Aye.
does you dirty.
Aye.
All right.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yep.
All right, Jen, I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.